picture this. You have just finished what is, by all modern standards anyway, the universally perfect health-optimizing meal.
Right, the ultimate healthy lunch.
Exactly. It's this massive, beautiful salad. We are talking raw, leafy greens, a really colorful array of tomatoes and peppers, a generous handful of mixed nuts and seeds for those, healthy fats.
Oh yeah, maybe some lentils thrown in for good measure too.
Yeah. You are following all the rules. You are hitting literally every macronutrient profile perfectly. And yet, like an hour later, you feel absolutely terrible.
Just awful.
Right. The bloating is intense. Your energy is just completely plummeted. And bizarrely, the joints in your hands actually feel a little stiff. And you were sitting there thinking, if I am feeding my body the perfect fuel, why is the machine crashing?
Well, it's because we have been totally conditioned to view our bodies as combustion engines.
Like a car.
Exactly. You input the high-grade fuel, and the pistons should just fire flawlessly. And when the engine sputters, we just automatically assume the engine itself is broken.
Which is wild when you think about it.
It is. But the sources we are analyzing today completely dismantle that whole combustion engine model. We are looking at some really extensive writings on biological feedback, the localized environments of the gut microbiome, and the emerging science of personalized nutrition.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are going to decode the hidden language of your body. We are going straight after the illusion of the universal healthy diet.
Because it really is an illusion.
It is. The goal here is to help you build a relationship with food that's based entirely on your unique, dynamic biology rather than, a rigid set of external standardized rules.
Yeah, because the fundamental flaw in modern nutrition guidelines is that they are all built on statistical averages.
Yeah.
They are designed around what tends to work for a median population. But, nobody listening to this is a statistical average.
Nobody.
Your metabolism, the permeability of your gut lining, your specific immune responses, they all represent a completely unique internal landscape.
And the foundational shift in these texts is moving away from that whole concept of food as just fuel, right? It's redefining food as information.
Yes, that's a huge distinction. Every single bite you take is essentially a data packet.
A data packet.
Exactly. It's sending highly specific instructions into your biological systems. It's instructing your hormones, your digestive enzymes, your immune system on exactly how to behave in real time.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if food is complex information, that means a highly nutritious food is delivering an incredibly dense data packet.
Right. It's a lot of code to process.
But is feeding your body a quote-unquote universally healthy diet essentially like trying to run an incredibly advanced, resource-heavy software program on an incompatible operating system?
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Like the food is flawlessly written, but if your specific biological hardware lacks the compilers to interpret that data, the system simply crashes.
The compilation failure is the absolute perfect way to visualize this. The crash happens because the specific molecular structure of that food is interacting poorly with your localized enzyme activity.
Like right in that exact moment.
Exactly. Let's actually break down the physical mechanics using that perfect salad you mentioned earlier. The texts heavily analyze nightshades.
So tomatoes, peppers, aubergines, potatoes.
Yeah, all of those. And these are nutrient-dense powerhouses, right? But they naturally contain these compounds called glycoalkyls.
Glycoalkaloids, okay.
Right, and these are essentially the plant's natural defense mechanisms against pests. Now, in a human digestive tract with a perfectly robust mucosal lining, they just pass through without any issue at all.
But I'm guessing most people don't have a perfect gut lining.
Right, exactly. If your gut lining is even slightly compromised, these uncleaved glycoalkaloids just slip right into the bloodstream.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the immune system flags them as foreign data, so it mounts a localized inflammatory response, which, interestingly enough, often manifests in the synovial fluid of your joints.
Which totally explains the stiff hands after eating a tomato. I mean, nobody eats a raw bell pepper and expects an immune response in their knuckles.
No, of course not. But that's exactly what's happening. And the texts detail similar mechanical mismatches with nuts and seeds, too.
Which we are always told to eat more of.
Right. We praise them for their mineral profiles, but they contain really high levels of phytic acid and natural enzyme inhibitors.
Wait, enzyme inhibitors?
Yeah. Their biological purpose is to prevent the seed from sprouting until the external conditions are absolutely perfect. So when you consume them in large quantities, those enzyme inhibitors actually actively suppress your own digestive enzymes.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It creates this profound sense of heaviness because your stomach is literally being told to stop breaking things down.
Wow. And we see the same compilation error with legumes and raw vegetables, right? The sources point out that breaking down the complex cellulose structures in raw plant cell walls demands a massive amount of thermogenic energy.
Tons of energy. And enzymatic energy, too.
Right. And if you lack the specific enzymatic keys to unlock those complex carbohydrate structures, they basically just bypass the absorption phase entirely and travel straight to your lower intestine,
Where they just sit there and undergo bacterial fermentation.
which inherently yields gas, and that physically stretches the intestinal walls, which triggers pain receptors, hence the severe bloating.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If a universally good food is triggering these system crashes, the joint stiffness, the bloating, the fatigue, how do we usually interpret those alerts?
We usually think we're just broken.
Right. Society has completely conditioned us to view inflammation as an enemy that just has to be eradicated. We treat it like a biological mistake.
But the sources completely reframe this.
They do. They say inflammation is not a failure at all. It is a highly intelligent telemetry system. It is literally your body's communication network.
What's fascinating here is how the texts differentiate between acute and chronic telemetry. Like when you sprain an ankle, the rush of acute inflammation is super obvious.
Yeah, it gets huge and red.
Right. It's immobilizing the joint to repair the tissue. But the focus of this research is on low-grade chronic inflammation, the quiet, normalized signals.
The stuff we just ignore.
Exactly. Digestive discomfort that you just accept as your daily baseline, or unexplained mid-afternoon fatigue, subtle skin breakouts, or just that mild stiffness in your knees.
And that's the immune system actively tagging unassimilated proteins and trying to isolate them.
Yes, it's trying to protect you.
But we usually silence that telemetry immediately. I mean, we just pop an antacid when we feel bloated or swallow an anti-inflammatory when our hands ache.
So all the time.
It's essentially like putting a piece of black tape over the check engine light on your dashboard. I mean, you're hiding the light, but you are completely ignoring the engine. You're muting the smoke alarm because the high-pitched noise is annoying, completely ignoring the fact that the kitchen is quietly smoldering.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. Suppressing the biological telemetry system operates from this mindset of sheer control. You are basically forcing the system to keep running while actively hiding the error codes.
Which is not sustainable.
Not at all. The sources argue for a complete paradigm shift here. We have to move from a mindset of control to a mindset of curiosity.
Curiosity, I like that.
Instead of asking, what chemical will force this symptom to stop? The biological imperative really becomes, what specific unassimilated data packet is my immune system currently responding to?
Right. And if we are actually going to act on that curiosity, we have to look under the hood at the localized environments where this data processing actually happens.
Which means looking at the gut.
Exactly. The texts dive deep into the gut microbiome, but rather than using that tired cliche of the microbiome being like soil for a garden, the sources describe it more like a massive dynamic decryption engine.
The decryption analogy perfectly captures the mechanics at play here. Your microbiome is composed of trillions of bacterial strains.
Trillions. It's hard to even fathom.
It is. And those strains possess specific cryptographic keys designed to break down highly complex molecular structures, like those tough raw vegetable cell walls we just discussed. So dysbiosis, or bacterial imbalance, simply means you have temporarily lost access to certain decryption keys.
Oh, so it's not permanent.
No, not necessarily. But you can consume the highest quality, most organic raw kale on the planet. And if the bacterial strains required to decrypt that specific cellulose structure are depleted, the data just remains locked, and it ferments.
And the sources take this concept of the internal ecosystem even further by introducing environmental and thermal biology, because digestion is not happening in a vacuum.
Right. It's heavily regulated by your autonomic nervous system and your external climate.
Yeah. The texts actually map out how warm, humid environments induce vasodilation. Your blood vessels expand, circulation to the splanchnic region, which is the digestive organs, increases, and the smooth muscle tissue of your gut actually relaxes.
So digestion becomes highly efficient.
Exactly.
But conversely, in cold, dry climates, the body prioritizes core temperature preservation. It initiates vasoconstriction, actively shunting blood flow away from the digestive tract and out toward the vital organs and skeletal muscles.
So it's literally taking resources away from digestion to keep you warm.
Exactly. Gastric emptying just drastically slows down. So a really dense, raw meal that processes smoothly on a warm beach vacation can literally just sit undigested in your stomach on a freezing winter day.
That is mind-blowing. And the
Yeah.
texts apply that exact same mechanism to stress and sleep deprivation too.
Oh, stress is a huge factor.
Right, because when you are under psychological stress, your body shifts out of the parasympathetic rest and digest state and locks into the sympathetic fight or flight response.
The adrenal glands just start pumping out cortisol.
Yeah, and biologically, digesting a complex salad is just no longer a priority when the nervous system perceives an active threat.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally alters how we view food intolerances. Because tolerance is highly fluid, it evolves based on resource allocation.
Wait, so if the body's ecosystem is this dynamic, does that mean taking a vacation to a warm climate, getting 8 hours of sleep, and just relaxing could literally make a trigger food suddenly digestible for you without changing the food itself?
Yes, absolutely. A significant reduction in your daily stress, a full night of restorative sleep, or even just a shift in ambient temperature can physically change your enzymatic environment.
It's so wild.
You might suddenly process a trigger food effortlessly. The food is simply one variable in a much larger, constantly shifting biological equation.
So what does this all mean? I have to push back here a little bit on the practical application of this research.
Sure.
Because if our bodies are these incredibly sensitive, dynamic decryption engines influenced by, ambient temperature, cortisol levels, sleep cycles, and lost bacterial keys, how do we actually isolate the signal from the noise?
Sounds overwhelming.
It does. If a stressful Tuesday at the office causes the exact same bloating as a bowl of lentils, how do you decode this without turning your daily meals into this, paranoid, obsessive scientific experiment? You know what I mean?
This raises an important question, and honestly, it is the exact trap the sources warn against. You cannot decode a complex system while the system is overloaded.
Right. There's too much going on.
Exactly. The biological imperative is establishing a quiet baseline. You have to temporarily create acoustic isolation in the body by removing the highest computational load foods.
Okay, so you eliminate the nightshades, the dense raw cellulose, the enzyme-inhibiting seeds, and those fermentable legumes.
Right. And it's really important to note that this is not a restrictive diet or some permanent cleanse. It is simply pausing the most complex data packets so the localized inflammation can actually subside.
You are basically quieting the room so you can actually hear the individual telemetry signals.
Beautifully said, yes. Once the baseline is established and those chronic symptoms fade, then you begin gradual reintroduction.
Which involves a lot of waiting, right?
Yes. The texts heavily emphasize the biological half-life of food reactions during this phase. You introduce one variable, say almonds, and then you leave a significant gap of time before introducing another.
Right, the spacing is the most critical mechanical step here. Because the sources explain that immune responses are not always these innate, immediate reactions, like a sudden histamine flush where you turn red instantly.
No, many of them are delayed.
Yeah, they're adaptive immune responses. An IgG antibody reaction to a specific protein might actually take 24 to 48 hours to fully manifest in the tissues or joints.
Which is why people get so confused about what triggered them.
Exactly. If you eat a tomato on Monday morning, the glycoalkaloids might not trigger synovial inflammation in your knuckles until Tuesday night. And by then, you've eaten like 6 other meals.
Right. But by spacing out the reintroduction, you account for that delayed biological half-life. The telemetry becomes undeniable at that point.
You can clearly link the symptom to the food.
Yes. If a food requires too much enzymatic power or triggers an immune tag, you simply observe the symptom, acknowledge that your current internal ecosystem lacks the capacity for that specific data packet right now, and you just set it aside temporarily.
So you avoid the trap of rigid tracking because this whole process is about recognizing the distinct dialect of your own body through pattern recognition.
It's not about being a scientist in a lab.
Right, you are not filling out spreadsheets or labeling foods as permanently toxic or anything. You are just developing a gentle awareness. And eventually it just becomes intuitive.
You stop asking external authorities if a bowl of raw greens is quote-unquote healthy.
Yeah. You instantly recognize that your specific physiological state, like if you're shivering at your desk on a stressful winter afternoon, does not have the parasympathetic blood flow to process that meal.
Exactly. The ultimate goal outlined in the text is quiet biological confidence. You replace the anxiety of adhering to universal diet rules with an engaged, continuous dialogue with your own physiology.
I love that. Well, we began this deep dive by shattering the illusion of the universal healthy diet. We pulled apart the mechanics of nutritious triggers, reframed inflammation from a biological enemy into an intelligent telemetry system, and mapped out how thermal biology and nervous system states physically alter our digestive capacity.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We replaced the rigidity of diet culture with the localized dynamic reality of your own internal ecosystem. Health is clearly not a static destination. It's an incredibly complex, ongoing translation of the data you feed your system.
A continuous conversation.
Exactly. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to explore on your own. A concept that builds directly on the mechanics we've just covered.
Ooh, all right.
If food is simply information, and our bodies are constantly generating telemetry based on our shifting internal environments, what does that mean for our cravings?
Oh, that's a whole other layer.
Right. Because we have been heavily conditioned to view a sudden craving as a moral failure or a bad habit or just a total lack of personal discipline.
Like you're just weak.
Exactly. But applying the logic of biological feedback, could an intense out-of-nowhere craving for severe salt, rapid absorbing sugar, or a highly specific textural crunch actually be a deeply specific, poorly translated dialect from your microbiome?
That makes perfect sense.
Could a sudden craving for salt be your adrenal system, signaling a need for immediate mineral support to manage a cortisol spike?
Or could a sugar craving be a specific bacterial strain in your gut, chemically demanding the exact substrate it needs to survive a stress-induced die-off?
Yes. So next time a seemingly irrational craving hits, instead of immediately fighting it, suppressing it, or shaming yourself for lack of willpower, try treating it as raw data.
Just observe it.
Right. Ask that craving what specific environmental shift your internal ecosystem is actually demanding.
It's all just information.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay fiercely curious, keep listening closely to the complex telemetry your body's broadcasting today, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.